Suba South MP in just a bit. This is why. So Parliament is set to resume its normal business tomorrow under new safety measures aimed at containing the spread of the coronavirus. Under the new measures put in place to protect the lawmakers, only 53 members of the National Assembly will be allowed into the chamber during any session. National Assembly clerk says members and staff aged 58 years and above, or those with existing medical conditions, will be required to work from home. While inside the chamber, members will be required to stay in the seats marked for them. Anyone within Parliament buildings will also be required to wear masks at all times, with hand sanitizers provided in designated areas.
But for purposes of tomorrow, it will hold 40 members, well spaced, more than 3 meters apart. And seats have been reserved as per the Speaker's directive for the Leader of Majority Party, the Leader of the Minority Party, the Majority Party Chief Whip, the Minority Party Chief Whip, the Deputy Speaker, and we have also reserved seats for members who are moving business in the particular settings.
All right, and joining me live now is Honorable John Mbadi, Suba South Member of Parliament, and also the Minority Leader, Honorable John Mbadi. Thank you so much for making time for us. So, Parliament is resuming after a month of recess. You went off on the 17th instead of the 19th, which was just 2 days earlier. Kenyans are saying members of Parliament are the weakest link when it comes to fighting COVID-19. As the Minority Leader, what did you say about that?
Thank you very much, Trevor. First of all, I would want to say that those Kenyans who are saying that Parliament is the weakest link in this fight probably have not come to terms with the real functions of Parliament or National Assembly in this case. The work of Parliament is basically to legislate and to oversight. The governance function is a function of the executive, and it is the responsibility of the executive to come up with policy direction and proposals on the way forward. Even if you look at what is happening in the US, that has been cited a number of times. It was the Obama administration, the Trump administration, that came up with the proposals on how to cushion and protect the economy and the way forward. And the work of the legislative arm is to oversight the same and also to approve any legislation that is required. Where we stand now as a country, it has been the responsibility of the executive through the Ministry of Health to come up with proposals and suggestions, and through the cabinet, which the president is chairing, on the way how to handle and address this crisis. Our role as a parliament is to look at those proposals, the strategies, and analyze and look at them and agree whether come up with a report as to whether the proposed strategies make sense. And if there is any legislation, then Parliament would come in. Now, let me just quickly address you on what has been happening so far. After we are dealing with 3 issues before us. We have the health crisis, which is a serious crisis and which was an emergency. And the executive has tried to deal with it the way it has. Parliament, through its committee, that is the health committee, has been following through and having discussions with the Ministry of Health on issues of preparedness, on issues of the funding. And tomorrow when Parliament resumes, then we expect as a plenary a report from the Health Committee dealing or addressing all those areas that we would want to know. We would want to know how the government is prepared to deal with the cases in case they are going to increase. Already there are projections.
All right.
We need to know the quantity of PPEs. We want to know the level of preparedness in terms of staffing, the staff that is supposed to help in this fight.
Yeah.
And then the second issue that we will also be addressing is the issue of social interventions.
Yeah.
How do we cushion those Kenyans who, some have lost their jobs, we have the urban poor, we have the rural, which is basically composed of a very high percentage of people who are below the poverty line, and we have the businesses. How do we protect them? We expect a report again in Parliament. So in a nutshell, committees of Parliament have been very busy engaging with government ministries. And then what we now expect tomorrow in Parliament and going forward is a report on the same.
Honorable Mbadi, nothing was stopping any member from bringing a private bill because, like you mentioned, the works of the MPs are known, representation, oversight, legislation. You adjourned just 3 days after the first coronavirus case was mentioned here in Kenya. Shouldn't you have stayed longer to cushion the same Kenyans you're talking about?
Trevor, I'm a bit surprised that you are thinking that a matter as serious as this, that an individual member would bring a legislation to deal with it. That, to me, I think is failing to understand the role of Parliament. A matter as serious as Corona, the crisis that we have before us, Trevor, Kenyans need to appreciate that this is a matter that has to be dealt with in a holistic manner. In fact, not even one ministry will deal with it. It must be multi-sectoral. You have to bring together the Ministry of Health with the expertise that is required. You must bring the Ministry of Finance. You must bring the Ministry of Security or National Security. So an individual member cannot bring legislation in Parliament to address the issue of coronavirus. What is expected is for the executive to bring policy proposals, which the president pronounced in terms of tax measures, in terms of emergency interventions, and in terms of how do we, going forward, save the economy. The role of Parliament is to interrogate those policies and come up with a way forward that is sensitive to the plight of wananchi. So we are going to address the issues of the emergency interventions in terms of health. We are going to look at the social interventions. How do we cushion the vulnerable based on the proposal from the government, from the executive? And we are going to look for, going forward, how do we save our economy? If I had time, I would take you through a lot of proposals that are coming up, and where the input that is expected from Parliament. Where we are today is, I will tell you, Trevor, the Finance and Planning Committee has been looking at the various tax proposals. I know Kenyans are just aware of about 5. The issue of the income tax, the 24,000 and below. The issue of reducing the income tax from 30% to 25%, the maximum, that is. The issue of bringing down the corporation tax from 30% to 25%. The issue of the VAT, which is going to the Committee on Delegated Legislation. And the issue of the quantity tax or the output tax. All these, those are the issues that Kenyans are aware of. But there are other proposals that government is making or executive is making, some of which we are not very happy with, because it's like the government is giving with one hand and taking with another hand. So that is now the role of Parliament, to look at these issues and interrogate. But don't expect an individual member in a crisis as serious as Corona to bring an individual legislation to deal with it. That would be the responsibility of the ISO. So I don't know in which country you have ever seen such happening. So Corona is not just in Kenya, it's not confined in Kenya. Almost 200 countries are dealing with it, and I don't think there is any member of Parliament who has proposed measures to address it.
But here is something you can do for Kenyans as MPs. Most people have taken 30% pay cut. The president himself, the executive who you're talking about, asked all other arms of government to do the same. What is the position of members of Parliament on this?
You see, Trevor, the president took a personal pay cut and advised the other members of the executive arm. He did not order them. He advised them to take a pay cut. The speakers of the Senate and the National Assembly did the same. I think the Chief Justice also did the same. If members of Parliament are free to take pay cuts, but you cannot expect me as minority leader to order members of Parliament to take a pay cut. Pay cut or no pay cut is a personal and individual decision. I cannot make a decision for all the 349 members of the National Assembly. First of all, secondly, Trevor, members of parliament have also been intervening in their own different ways. I have seen, like, for example, the MP for Mbakasi East has bought quite a number of things for his constituents. Probably that is his way of taking a pay cut. I saw the MP for Ariada with several pickups, and he has bought quite a bit of food for his constituents. The MP for Keses also did the same. I have seen the MP for Ndewa buying airtime to help workers in his constituency, and many, many more. And I think that is what we need to encourage. I think we are in a situation, Trevor, that let us not look at fault on individuals and institutions. Let us look for the best way to address the crisis that we have before us. I know many people would like to make this matter a matter of who is doing what. I would tell you that where we are as we speak, Trevor, each one of us should be involved in one way or the other in trying to see how Kenyans can come out of this crisis.
So, Honorable Mbadi,
and lastly, the point that I wanted to raise.
Yeah.
Yes, Trevor.
Honorable Mbadi, you cannot say that this is why Kenyans are saying that members of parliament are not cognizant of the suffering that Kenyans are doing. We did a very quick math. So out of the 416, if you people just take like 10% of a pay cut, we would come up with 29.5 million per month. That essentially buys about 1.4 million masks, which will help the people who are suffering right now. How then can you say that it should be a voluntary thing? You're the members of parliament.
That calculation to me, I don't know where it is based on.
You have your calculator, sir. You can do it with me, and you'll come back to the same conclusion.
I have it, and Trevor, when it comes to accounting, I don't think you can fault my capacity.
Because you're in the budget committee.
But I would tell you,
but you know
that
this is...
think
yes, go ahead.
Not just being in the budget committee, I think my qualification in accounts is clearly known, even if I was not sitting in the budget committee. And Trevor, that is something where you cannot challenge me on. Let me just put it this way, Trevor. The members of parliament, people taking pay cut is on basic salary, isn't it? The basic salary of members of parliament, at least the one I know, is less than 400,000 as we speak, and you can check. And 10% of that, let's say upwards of 400,000, is 40,000. And that 40,000, by the way, 30% is usually taken as taxation. So the remaining amount which one would be offering in actual or in real sense is 28,000. So multiply that by 400 MPs. But let me tell you, Trevor, I would even encourage those MPs who are buying food for their constituents, and probably that is something that some of us are thinking of, because then if you take the 28,000 from me for 3 months, it is hardly 70,000. If I can produce 500,000 and buy food for my constituents, that would be enough a support. It's not even a sacrifice. We are not talking of sacrifice now, unless you want to do it for popularity's sake, which many people have also done it. But Trevor, let us not trivialize this fight against COVID-19. Let us, as a country, say anything that one can contribute, let us contribute it. And more importantly, let us rearrange our budget, and that is what exactly we are going to do as a parliament, because without parliament's approval, even what the president said remains a roadside declaration. Let us rearrange the budget so that we provide funding to cushion Kenyans. Taking a pay cut, you cannot run a country through philanthropy. It is important, and I don't want to trivialize it, but philanthropy cannot run a country. What can run a country is targeted, clear budgetary provisions.
Honorable Mbadi, it's very important, just like you've said it, because even if we work with your math, which is a very lower category of 400,000, I was working with about 700,000. Even with that, we're still at 11.6 million shillings. Is that what you'd call meager resources?
It is meager in terms of a country like ours, Trevor, but it may not be meager in terms of what it can do. I am not saying that there's nothing wrong. There's nothing absolutely wrong by a member of parliament offering a salary cut, say 10% or even 20%, or any other Kenyan. What I am saying is that you cannot ask me as a minority leader here to make a commitment on behalf of the 418 members of parliament, that is National Assembly and the Senate. It is not my duty to tell members of parliament on what to do with their salaries. So asking me that question, I would only be giving you an hypothesis. But what I was saying is that what we need to focus on and where we need to put pressure on members of parliament on, in fact, what I expected you, Trevor, now to do is to help us do public participation on the various legislations that are coming before parliament from tomorrow. We have the various tax law proposals on amending the tax laws. Many Kenyans have not understood them, and we have no way of moving around the country because you cannot hold meetings now. The media could be helping us very well by trying to make Kenyans understand exactly what will be before parliament, so that we don't pass laws that Kenyans are not agreeable to.
Okay.
That to me would be a better discussion. I'm not trivializing what we are discussing between you, with you, but I'm saying, wouldn't it have been better if we took much more time discussing the various proposals so that Kenyans can understand exactly what parliament is going to debate this coming week?
All right, that's exactly what they're asking on video, and they've sent in their video questions. Let's take a quick break here on the Monday Report. When we come back, Honorable Mbadi, stay with me. You wanted to know what Kenyans think in terms of what you should prioritize. Those are the questions they're asking right after this break. All right, see you in just a bit.
Thank you.